Alrighty, so we're here and we're ready to go. We're going to get started. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another Advocacy Activist Child Welfare Forum. Advocacy Activist was started back in December of 2016 as a support group for parents whose children were removed. Since then, it has come to our attention that the parent too needs to have a voice that speaks for both the children, the child, the parents, and the family as a whole. There is a need for child welfare reform, yes. However, this will not happen if those of us who are impacted by the systems are not educated on the systems, processes, and the reasons for their existence. So advocacy activists decided to conduct our own forums, a place where we can come to share, learn, and be empowered. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today. And we hope that you will join us as we continue our discussion on the historical overview on the past, present, and future of the child welfare systems. So come on in and let us dive right in with Connie Reguli as she provides us insight on the development of CPS trauma drama.
Well, hello and good morning, afternoon to everybody, depending on where you are. I'm so happy you joined us. I've got Shakima is sort of our technical person there. So hopefully we have it now so you can see the slideshow. Do you have the slideshow up for everybody? Shakima, is the slideshow up so they can see it?
Yes, can everybody see?
Okay, so the way we're doing this slideshow, I won't be able to see you, but you can see me. And we're also being live streamed on Facebook. So hopefully some people can join us there. And I encourage you to share it. We are recording this session of it. We will share those links to the live stream. This will also be uploaded. Please share. And, I have traveled all over the country. I have gone to probably 20 different states. I've been in forums where I've had 3 people show up, and I've been in forums where I have had 300 show up. The most important thing to me is that whatever I am giving you, whatever I'm sharing with you, you share with another person, because that is how we get the word to grow and to educate people who are not with us today. I have been an attorney for 3 decades. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself, but most importantly, people, even just like Shakima, she found me through social media. So many of the people that I've helped have found me through social media, and they have said that because I did a video 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was able to encourage them or teach them a little bit about the system. So Shakima approached me with the Advocacy Activist, and I'm very excited to be working with her because I can't do everything, of course. I can't build platforms and create the training and do it all. So I am happy to partner with anybody who understands the vast need for child welfare reform and who wants to do something to help. Everybody has a talent or a skill. We're not all the same. And as we go through this process, that's one thing I'm going to be asking you as well. What can you do? What is your talent? What is your skill that can help make this system better? All right, so let's begin. I think. Make sure I can get oops, I am sorry. I'm having trouble. Oh, there we go. All right, so I am the presenter for today. I'm Connie Reguli. I have been around for 3 decades. I've practiced law representing hundreds of families caught up in the trap of child welfare, administrative, and legal proceedings. When I tried to protect a disabled child from a secret order, which would remove her from her mother and place her in the home of a stranger, the system criminalized me and removed my ability to protect families. Those criminal matters are resolving, but I have had to redirect a lot of my energy and attention to training and advocating, which of course I am quite willing to do. I do see as their little scheme begins to fall apart and get untangled, they're getting a little bit nervous. So I suspect they'll try to do something else as well. So just keep your eyes open for that. I have here I'm going to take about 10 minutes and I'm going to play for you a TED Talk by Molly McGrath. She was the head of the Child Welfare Agency in Baltimore, Maryland, and she left frustrated, and she left this message in 2014. And it's very important. I want you to listen what she says at the end. This will also give the opportunity for a few other people to join us. So please watch as I share this with you.
Volume. We can't hear it. You have to
you
get
can't
the
hear
volume. No,
it. Okay. Okay, hold on. Can you not hear it at all?
no, can you? No, I can't hear it at all.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I don't know why. I'm going to try it another way. All right, let's try this again. No, you're not hearing it? Do you hear it now?
No, we still
No.
cannot hear it. Go do it on YouTube and then play it that way. But sometimes when you paste the link in, sometimes it does that. So just open it up on YouTube.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. All right. So I guess from a technical standpoint, we haven't fixed that. And I'm going to share that video again. Here's what's important is Molly McGrath headed up the Child Welfare Agency in Baltimore, Maryland. And she talks a lot. And this was a very inspiring video to me. But at the end of it, remember, this was 2014. And she talks about the insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And here we are in America. We are doing exactly the same thing we did for the past 10 years, and nothing has changed. And it's because we just can't seem to get past the bureaucracy and the immobility and the intolerance. We just are having difficulty getting past that. And so that's another reason why it's so important that advocates are getting together, that we're beginning to spread that word. And I will probably share that video again in a future training, just so that we all can hear once we figure out technically while we're unable to do that. All right, so let's look at the past. And why do you need to know about the past? So here is an AFCARS report. This is the official source document of the stats that are reported to the federal government. AFCARS, you can look up the data yourself, and it gives a 5-year glance. And so what you will see here, the most important number I want you to look at is this line right in the middle, the numbers served by foster care system during the fiscal year. This is the important number right here. You will see it is 685,000, 689,000, 631,000. Those are the number of children that are removed every year. And you will see this is 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And if the number of foster children up here on this first line, which a lot of people say, well, there's 400,000 children in foster care. Remember, that's on one day of the year. That is September the 30th. So let's go back in time. And like I said, Molly McGrath does this presentation, and she talks about in 2014, and she talks about the inertia for change and fixing the real problems. And so we take that very same report, only we go back in time, and this is 2013, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And the numbers served by foster for the fiscal year is still well up to 700,000, as you can see right here in 2016. And the point is we have done nothing better. We still have here, you see in 2017, on September the 30th, 442,000 children who are in the foster care system. And why do we know why those children are removed? So this again is from an AFCARS report. And this is a section that tells the reason for removals. And you can see here, the number one thing on the list at 63% is neglect. However, if you go down and you look at these other categories, you see that most of these other issues have also to do with an issue surrounding neglect. Only we have right here physical abuse is 12%, and we have sexual abuse is 4%. So most of the children are not removed because of physical or sexual abuse. The neglect at 63%, drug abuse at 36%, and caretaker can't cope at 14%, which I think is a really interesting category. That means that a parent needs help. A parent needs assistance. A parent needs help. Also, you look here, child behavioral problem is 7%. What they claim is abandonment is 5%. And child disability at 2%. That means that we are not reaching out as a community, as a nation, and trying to solve some of these social issues. The time in care, again, I've looked at the AFCARS report year after year after year after year, and unfortunately, these children don't really, these numbers don't really change. This mean and median for time in care is showing you that children are spending an average of 2.5 to almost 3 years in foster care. In the life of a child, that is a lifetime. That is a really, really long time. And look over here at the time in care, and you can see 18 to 29 months, 35 months. These are the biggest numbers. The children are spending a significant time in care, even though many of those children are reunited. And also 90% of the children are under 5 years old. So we have a societal dilemma in the United States. If you look back, I consider myself a historian of children in care in the United States, and we have a pretty miserable history. So you go way back and you start looking at the 1800s and the early 1900s, and one of the first things that you see is institutionalized care for children who have significant developmental disabilities. We were putting them away in institutions, putting them in iron cages called beds, and leaving them for hours and days at a time. Of course, we had slavery, and one of the key tools that they used during slavery was to separate children from their families. This was such a psychological drain on the families that it actually gave them more and more control. A lot of people in America still don't know about the orphan trains. The orphan trains were initiated in about 1850 and continued all the way until about 1910. And this was a system where children who were living in poverty were actually picked up off the streets of the major cities, including primarily New York City, and they would be put on trains and they would be taken across the Western United States. Once they got to different train stations, they would line them up on the platforms of the train stations, and people who were living in the Western United States would select children to help them with their farm work. These are called the orphan trains. And then, of course, there's the Indian boarding schools. Again, from about 1850 or a little bit earlier, 1840 until nearly 1900. Excuse me, we had the Indian boarding schools where children were actually picked up from the reservations, removed from their families, and taken to boarding schools where their hair would be cut. They would be forced to speak English. There has been a lot of the trauma that has come from boarding schools has come out in probably the last 20 to 30 years. And then we had Georgia Tan. This also was a little video clip I wanted to share for you, but since we know technically that doesn't work, I'm going to tell you about Georgia Tan. And I'm calling her out by name because what she did was horrific, but she is not alone. There were other people who were doing the same thing that she was doing. And her scheme lasted from about 1940 until the 1950s. And she started as having a what you might call a maternity home or an unwed mother's home. And, you know, I am 71 years old, you guys, so I've been on this planet a long time. And I will tell you that I remember from the 50s and the 60s, it was such a disgrace to have a child out of wedlock that women would actually go to a home for unwed mothers and have their child and hand their child over, because it had become such a societal red letter or a societal scar that they felt the need to do that. By the time I was reaching grammar school and high school, finally people were objecting to that and rejecting that. But what happened is Georgia Tan, she was in Memphis, Tennessee, and she had taken these, she started by taking babies and having babies, and then she basically created a business where she would then make money by transferring these babies to other states through adoption. She went to a separate county. We now know she went down to Bolivar. She had a scheme going with a judge in Bolivar who would allow her to terminate parental rights and complete adoptions without going through all the proper processes. And then it got so bad, and she became so dependent on that she started taking children and picking children up off the streets. She was finally busted by somebody who went to work for her as a social worker and realized what she was doing and finally blew the whistle. But she got away with this for several decades. Oops.
I can play that video if you like me to. I have it up.
Okay. All right. If you found it, let's go ahead and do that. I can't hear it.
Can you hear the video?
I cannot hear it. But actually people can read it. So the music is kind of irritating. So just go ahead and let it play through. So Margie, I see your note. Actually, the music on this is pretty irritating. So if you just read the messages on the screen, it really gives you the best information. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So can you all see my screen now? I can't see me. All right. Am I back up, Shakima?
All right, go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, so finally, the orphanages. So we have had, this is 1906, an orphanage in Louisiana, but we had a series of orphanages all over the United States. And so can everybody see my screen? Because I don't have a mini view of the Zoom anymore. Are we good?
No, put it back up. It can't,
Can you see my screen? You cannot?
no, you have to put it back up because I had shared.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go, hold on. Give me just 1 second, everybody. Just be patient.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Definitely, we will have a survey for those of you who have questions and need to be connected to someone that can assist you in your prospective state. That is why we're doing this, so you can be educated. And we have other forums that will teach you how to advocate for yourself. All right, your screen is back up. Just put it as a slideshow and we're ready to
There
go.
we go. Great. Thank you. All right. And so finally, then, of course, there are orphanages. We had orphanages all over the United States. Some were run by churches. Catholic Charities has a long history of having orphanages. And we were institutionalizing children. We know in America that the institutionalization of children does not work. It's America's societal dilemma. And so as this developed, or as we continued to institutionalize children up through the 50s and 60s, that was when ultimately there was a shift in society to create foster care. All right, so we're going to get in now to the nitty-gritty of the development of the laws and how that interplay is between the state and the federal. So all child welfare agencies are operated at the state or county level, and there is no federal child welfare agency. However, every state depends on the infusion of federal taxpayer dollars to operate its bureaucracy. From the federal level, Federal Health and Human Services, also known as HHS, and within HHS is the Administration of Children and Families. They manage the federal funds dispersed to the states and receive annual statistical reports. They also provide what's called some technical guidance, which are basically just publications and reports. Now, when I say words like federal funds, I really hate to even use these words because it is our money. It is taxpayer dollars. This whole system is run by taxpayers. And that's part of the message I want to put out to you loud and clear. We have got to hold our agencies and the people who are getting our money accountable. And I know a lot of them. I've heard a teacher say one time that she doesn't like it when a taxpayer comes up and says, "You work for me." But that is the truth. The people who are on the taxpayers' payroll are working for us. Please remember that. Please put that in your heart and begin to speak boldly about that. So let's go back to the history of federal legislation. In 1935, the Social Security Act passed, and it included limited funds for child welfare. It created Title IV of the Social Security Act. Now, remember, the sales job for the Social Security Act to the American citizens was that this was going to be the retirement account for hardworking American citizens. It is a total separate tax. It was supposed to go into a trust fund for American citizens, but immediately when it was formed, there was a limited amount that then went out to aid children, primarily initially when the children had lost a parent to death. In 1958, amendments to the Social Security Act required the states to match federal child welfare funds if they chose to draw down federal tax dollars. This is the first hit of where the federal government says, now the initial Social Security Act that provided some money for child welfare primarily, and this is important to know, primarily went directly to the child or family. So if a child lost a parent or had a disabled parent, a stipend from the Social Security funds would go directly to that family. So in 1958, when the states were wanting this federal money to be able to operate child welfare agencies, the federal government says, now you're going to have to match those funds. Again, remember, when I say federal child welfare funds and federal tax dollars, it is taxpayer money. And I just again made a note of this, that the monies the taxpayers and the workers pay for FICA, which is the Federal Insurance Corporation Act, was intended to be placed in trust for disability and worker retirement. And those funds have been sorely invaded by Title IV-E. By 1961, there was the creation of the AFDC, or the Aid to Dependent Children. This permitted the use of Title IV funds for foster care when children were removed from homes if the child comes from an AFDC family. State participation in the Title IV-A, which was the AFDC foster care program, is mandatory. 150,000 children were placed in foster care in 1961. Okay, so I want you to make sure you understand the impact. The AFDC was created for poor families, for poor children. It was aid to dependent children. And then they created foster care and said, if a child qualifies for AFDC, they now qualify to Title IV-E funds if you take that child out of the home and put him in a stranger's home. The war on poverty existed in the 1960s and 70s, and the United States Congress took aggressive actions against U.S. citizens who were oppressed and confused after half a century of war and a century of Reconstruction. The war on poverty started removing children from poor families' homes. The war on drugs created heavy sentences of incarceration, and the war on civil rights, voting rights, prisoner rights, and parental rights began in the courts. So remember, removing the children from poor homes was part of the war on poverty. And about this time, they added to the language of anybody receiving a home or receiving funds from federal money for poverty, for AFDC. One of the requirements that they put in there was that the family have a suitable home. And of course, the government agencies who wanted to remove children could use that suitable home language to use against a parent. Of course, if they're living in poverty and they need funds, they probably also need help in housing. In 1974, there was the CAPTA legislation, which is also referred to as the Mondale Act. It is also called the Child Abuse Prevention and Services Act. Treatment Act, CAPTA, C-A-P-T-A. This act focused on prevention, assessment, identification, and treatment of child abuse and neglect, but it also put removal of children in the hands of the state court system. In this legislation, legal terms like best interest of the child, contrary to the welfare of the child, and reasonable efforts became the legal cliches to justify parent and child separation. This code, this federal legislation, was codified in 42 USC section 671 and also 45 CFR, and I've got the numbers there. And let me just explain the difference to those to you for just a second. So when you see a code or a USC, United States Code, that means it is a law enacted by Congress, and that is what is called codified. That is the language that is used. 45 CFR, the R stands for regulations. So once a bill is codified by Congress or put into the U.S. Code, the state agencies can then create regulations. The federal and state agencies, they both do it. So these are the regulations that were then created by Health and Human Services. as you begin to learn how this system works, it will also be the same on the state level. So the state level will create codes or laws passed by the General Assembly, and then those state agencies that operate those systems can create their own set of regulations. So each state was required to create a state plan under CAPTA, and that is codified in 42 USC 671. And that is where these words emerge. And I call them totally judicial cliches because the courts often do not provide supporting facts to reach these conclusions. And then as we move along, 1978, we had the Indian Child Welfare Act called ICWA. The importance of this act is that it increased the burden of proof for state agencies to take children from Indian tribes and put them in the homes of those who were not Indians. And so it was intended to protect the heritage. There was a pretty big case on this not too long ago. I don't have that case in front of me. I don't want to quote it, but recently ICWA has been challenged. I have used it and I have spoken out about it because there's actually a higher threshold for Indian children than there is for any other ethnic group, including Caucasians in the United States. And I have said that that's a violation of equal protection. In 1980 was the Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Amendments. This is where we began to see monies for adoption as well as for foster placement. It was just the commencement of that. 1981, Congress rejected a Senate bill that would create a child welfare block grant and eliminate Title IV-E. This is really important. And the reason I want to say this is because remember, our children are monetized per head. So you have to take a child out of custody of their parent and put them in the custody of the state, and there is $1 per head to those children. What the Senate tried to do in 1981 was create a block grant, which would say basically the states would be entitled to a block of money instead of monetizing each child they remove. This is something that we are also trying to get Congress to look at again. My friend Kathleen Arthur, who also works with me in Family Forward Project and goes to Washington, this is one of the messages that she has passed out to Congress at this time. And here we know that they tried it in 1981. It was rejected. It did not pass. However, I think the time has come for this to be re-examined. 1985, the Title IV-E added the independent living program to assist children aging out of foster care. Now we know by 1985 that we've created legal orphans in the United States. The children are getting booted out of foster care and they have nobody. They have no family. They have no genealogy. There's this generational loss for them. Often they have no further association with their foster parents. And so this was something to try to begin to assist them. 1993, Title IV-B created a new family preservation and family support program. Here is, and as you learn more about this, you're going to see that we're looping back around to try to create more power, more effectiveness, more finances through the Title IV-B program, because the difference between Title IV-B and Title IV-E is 10 times. In other words, when you are funding when Congress funds Title IV-B at $600 million, they're funding Title IV-E at $6 billion. So there is a 10 times gap of the money that they provide for foster services versus the money they provide for family preservation and family support. So the federal dilemma of the 1990s was that children were getting lost in foster care. Now, remember, of course, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have computers on our desk. we didn't have all the fancy electronics that we have today. And basically, every child was a manila folder with their name on it. And children were lost across the whole entire country. When I first got out of law school in 1994, it was the following year, was the very first year that even district attorneys had computers sitting on their desk. I mean, it was the managing of data and information on people was basically a hot mess. So several federal class action lawsuits sprang up across the country, which were initiated by childrensrights.org because of children who were lost in the system, ignored, deprived, and it was a totally failed system. Tennessee, for instance, had the Brian A. case. It was a 1994 federal law for Child and Family Service Review, and it authorized the child welfare demonstration projects. So as these class actions began to spring up, and we said, oh my gosh, children are aging out, they're legal orphans, we're losing children in the system. It took a class action lawsuit to be able to initiate some change. And out of those class action lawsuits were several consent decrees that came from federal courts, including Tennessee, and there were about 20 other states that went under consent decree. And out of that emerged this 1994 act to try to authorize the child welfare demonstration projects, which meant that they could now use money to provide more in-home services before a child was removed from a home and placed with strangers. So the federal dilemma of the 1990s continued. In 1997, President Clinton signed the ASFA, Adoption and Safe Families Act. The Clintons are very proud of this. There's another video on here that's coming up in the next slide. I'll just tell you about when it comes up. But the purpose of this, they said, was to increase permanency for children. It codified post-adoption bonuses, which means it made it a law. And it provided long-term post-adoption support, and it required the states to seek termination of parental rights after 15 months in foster care. So the purpose was, and I was a lawyer at the time in 1997. I had just began to get introduced to the foster care system. I was well aware of the Brian A. Act. I knew about the consent decrees that were coming out of the major class action lawsuits. And honestly, I will tell you that even I thought this might be a good idea. But now, as we look, how far are we after 2020, almost 20 years later, 97, 2000, 25 years later, we know that this was a bad idea, or it's bad to continue this. It might have been good at the time, but it no longer works well. And when we go to Washington, D.C., and we talk to legislative aides and we talk to legislators, I say, there were a lot of things that were passed in the 1970s that don't work well today. And this is one of them. So this sped up adoptions, and it provided more money for the people who adopted after that adoption was complete. This now Title IV-E post-adoption support money has surpassed the Title IV-E foster care money because it is cumulative year after year after year. And as we looked earlier at those number of children going into foster care, the 700,000, of those 700,000 children, over 100,000 of them are going through this post-adoption process every year. So you look, that adds up. It becomes cumulative year after year after year. In Tennessee alone, this money is well over $10 million per month. That's over $100 million a year. It's also what I call the middle class welfare program that nobody talks about. This is tax-free money that is going to raise children when many of these children are removed because of poverty in the first place. All right, this video, we're not going to play it or attempt to play it. I don't want to get off track from our video, but we'll post it later, and we'll figure out a way to give you this video. But this is in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and Bill Clinton stood up at the Democratic National Convention in support of his wife. But the most important thing, and what this clip is about, is how proud he talks about that he is that Hillary Clinton was the one who got the Adoption and Safe Families Act passed. I don't know if they're just blind. Now, remember, that's 2016. So that's 20 years after the fact. They are bragging about the termination of parental rights and the destruction of families. Oops. All right. So again, 1990s, the dilemma they were facing. In 1999, John H. Chafee created the Independent Living Program for children aging out of foster care, which provided this monthly stipend check to foster kids, college benefits, and healthcare benefits. Now, I would like to tell you that the Chafee bill was passed in commemoration of perhaps a foster child who had struggled through the system and had been able to create a life of independence. But no, it's named again about a senator, which is really unfortunate, but it is now referred to as the Chafee bill. And this provides this monthly stipend for foster kids or foster kids coming out of care. And, you know, ultimately, I don't think that this is a horrible thing to do for children who have suffered through this system. But the problem is it's a perverse incentive. And I have even seen the child welfare agencies approach children who are 17 years old. And one child was even 1 month from being 18. And a DCS social worker told that child if they would agree to go into foster care and age out of foster care, that they would get a monthly allowance check from the government until they were 26 years old. They would get free college and they would get health care benefits. So let's continue. In 2001, the Promoting Safe and Stable Families was more services to the foster kids. 2008, Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act was more services to foster kids, but not really stabilizing families. As you see, it is about increasing adoptions. In 2010, the Affordable Care Act extended Medicaid coverage to all foster kids aging out until age 26. And in 2010, CAPTA, this 1974 bill that I told you about, is reauthorized, with no changes, by the way. And now remember, by 2010, we're beginning to get AFCAR's reports that shows us all of the reasons children are removed. It's showing us all the number of children that are being subjected. 2018, and this is where Family Forward Project began to become active. We started activating in 2015, going to Washington, D.C., putting our heads together. I started traveling all over the United States, just speaking to groups anywhere. Sometimes it was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and sometimes it was 300. I'm so grateful for all of those people in those different states who would put together just a presentation, a group before the pandemic. And I would just go. I just wanted to meet people. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted them to hear a voice. I wanted them to have more, feel more presence. And so in 2018, after we went up grassroots lobbying and worked and went up there, we pounded the pavement. We walk into offices. We plead. We take families who tell their stories, who are suffering. The Families First Prevention and Services Act passed, the FFPSA, now known as the Families First Act. The Families First Act did 4 things. I don't think I covered this in another slide, so let me, okay. Oh, nope, that's going to be in my next slide, so I'll save that a second. There was also in 2020 an executive order by President Trump to ensure the implementation of the FFA. And then in 2020, there was another bill passed, the Families First Support Act, to provide more money for the FFA. So what did the Families First Act do? There were 4 things in the Families First Act. It was a good start, but it's not good enough for many reasons I will tell you in just a moment. The state agencies could receive a $75 reimbursement for in-home services 12 months prior to removal for children who were at risk of removal. Now, 75% of a fee, such as, let's say they needed homemaker services or anger management services, or maybe even therapy. To the state agencies, this was really a pittance. They would much rather have that child in foster care. but this was this was an expansion of Title 4E to allow the states to try to keep a family stable instead of separating them. The states were to phase out group homes for children, to support pregnant foster children, which is a sad state of affairs, but that's indeed where we are, and to implement a kinship navigator plan for more relative placement. So what happens? So we have resistance. You know, it is the Titanic. This whole system is like the Titanic. And I tell people, and I talk when we go to Washington, D.C., I say, you know, we may not be able to turn the Titanic around, but if we could just move it 3 degrees, maybe we could keep it from hitting the iceberg. There are power struggles, there are greedy contractors, there's job security, there's adoption incentives or adoption bonuses, there's perverted incentives. And this is part of what Molly McGrath talked about as well in 2014. And so that resistance is refusal to implement. The contractors are afraid of losing money. There's less foster, there's less jobs. The post-adoption now surpasses the foster funds. There's no bonuses, and there would be a loss of agency income. And so they see, these state agencies see the implementation of the Family First Act as a sinking ship to their bureaucracy. Okay, that's Molly again. We're going to pass her up. All right, so the Family First plan. So I have also complained since 2018 when this bill was passed, they were supposed to implement the plan by October of 2018. That deadline got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So the final deadline, the ultimate deadline, was supposed to be October of 2022. Here's a little map that I found that talks about whether or not the states are implementing it. So you see the white states, they are jurisdiction with no Family First legislation or Title 4E plan. So the difference in that is that the state legislators can actually enact a law for the implementation of Family First, or the state agency can just put together a plan that complies with Family First. The green states are the states that have enacted Family First legislation, which is critically important that we do that. And you see there we have Alabama, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. And then the blue is the jurisdictions with approved Title 4E prevention plans, which you can see those northeastern states of Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, also Utah and Idaho. And then the orange are the jurisdictions that enacted legislation and have approved plans. And although that appears to be a majority of the states, we're still getting reports that a lot of the states are not implementing it within the agency. So as you saw, Tennessee supposedly had a Title 4E plan. I say it's a lie, because here's the published plan for Tennessee. If you click on the link on that interactive map on the website, you come to Administrative Policy and Procedure 16.36 and look under the authorities section there. And do you see any reference at all to the Family First Act? You do not. And if you read through that entire policy, which I have, they really are not enforcing and supporting Family First. Now, I just want to talk about, we're going to go further in other presentations about our current state, but I just want to put out there and plug in a few things about where the reports are coming from. You see here that legal and law enforcement personnel and educational personnel are the top 2 categories, which are nearly 50%. If you add medical personnel, you've got well over 50% of the reports are coming from education, legal, law enforcement, and medical. And at some other point, we'll talk about teachers and reports and truancy and increasing their funds. Now, earlier I showed you the statistics on the number of children. Look here, here's another example of we just can't seem to get it right. This is 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And these are the referrals, and you'll see there is really no change. The screened in referrals, again, it's about the same, which means those are the referrals. When I say a referral, that means a phone call of an allegation of abuse or neglect. And then the disposition means that they acted on it and they did something. And you see that there are still, out of all the calls that come in, that only about a third of those are considered receiving a disposition. And again, here's another example. I want you to look first at the child population of reporting states. And I want you to see it's very interesting that in the United States, we actually have a decrease in child population. We have gone from 74 million to 72 million in the United States, which is really kind of frightening if you think about just the future of our country. And the over here, the rounded number of children who received an investigation or alternative response continues to be about 3 million, although it looks like it has decreased just a little bit, but it could be because they say they don't have enough money, and we'll get to that as well. So the point of this I want to show you, and I want your minds to begin to churn on this, is what are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? Now, this also shows you that of all of those reports that come in, I want you to look at this number right here. This number right here shows you that 56% of the reports that come in are unsubstantiated. Unsubstantiated means that there was an investigation, although albeit I often complain about the types and their abilities to do investigations, that 56% of those investigations are unfounded, unsubstantiated. The victims right here are 17% of those calls. So what are some of our problems? Of course, I've already mentioned it. I'm going to lay it out again because we have to learn about the contractors. We have the law and money entanglement. We have private contractors. We have state taxpayer money. We have federal taxpayer money. We have adoption bonus incentive money, which means that the states get a bonus check for every child they adopt out. And we just barely brushed on that. But that 1997 Adoption and Safe Family Act provided at first a $4,000 bonus, and now it's up to a $10,000 to $12,000 bonus to the state agency for every child they adopt. And of course, there's the post-adoption continued monthly payments, which I've already talked to you about. So we're faced with this huge bureaucracy. The state agencies now depend on these federal tax dollars to maintain the expansive network of employees and contractors. For instance, in Tennessee, a population of 6 million people has 3,900 DCS employees and 185 contractors. And, you know, Tennessee has about 9,000 children in foster care and 3,900 employees. I want you to just look at that ratio. And I'm going to bring up a little bit more about the operations of that agency. And I know as you watch this, you're watching from all over, from Florida, from Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. The problems are consistent across the entire United States. I happen to watch Tennessee more because I do try to educate our people at the state level on these problems. I want you to become empowered and educated so that you can help me in your particular states tell these stories as well. All right, the people, there's this vast bureaucracy of top-heavy bureaucracy with pencil pushers that strive to keep power. Oh my gosh, and I missed that screen. Okay, I'm not sure if you could see it. I accidentally hit my screen there, but that was a little screen of a social worker who made a post on social media who said that how easy it was for her to take children away from parents. So in 2021, there was a culture survey with the Department of Children's Services. And here's a few things of what the staff has said. It said one of the employees said, I would seek employment elsewhere if my tenure were shorter. We are led by administrators who only value each other. Nepotism and discrimination are the real problems in this agency. No one is concerned about resolving the serious issues in this region. I'm committed to making a difference in the lives of children and family. The administrators here just boss each other around and try to please each other. It is not the work necessarily that's draining. It is when the company you work for treats you and other coworkers who don't work as hard, treats other coworkers who don't work as hard or care about children within the community and cannot ever be a team player. It's always causing strife. It's when constantly those workers are allowed to do whatever they want. It is when you work so hard for a kid and you're told no to any kind of court order when you know something is wrong, but the kid is too afraid to say anything. It's when you start wondering why you fight for children at all. The failure to solve the problem and the social issues cause the children to interstate custody. That has never been addressed. One of the workers says it's unsafe. I believe it's unsafe for employees to transfer delinquent and behavioral teenagers in their personal vehicles. And I want you to think about that. And I have been personally faced with this dilemma before, when you were afraid that a child might jump out of your car, and these social workers are being faced with that. It's most upsetting. What I see is the multi-generations of clientele in DCS custody. I have found around for almost 30 years that I am not seeing DCS clientele getting out of poverty in spite of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on an individual. I often fail to see the point of DCS or social service organizations in general. DCS is very well funded. It has double figures, layers of management, but the programs appear to be inefficient and wasting taxpayer money. Through high participation in a 401k, other investments, plus having a pension, I have managed to climb into the 97th percentile of wealth, but I figure my career has been a waste. Now, I am going to show you some other people who have spoken out. I am not alone in the message. There are some very highly educated people who are attorneys, who are social workers, professors. Here's one book by Laura Briggs called Taking Children. And she talked about Florida and Tennessee being the first states to take children and punish Black women for civil rights rebellion. She also talked about Florida and Louisiana welfare requirements, including a suitable home and prohibited benefits to illegitimate children. If you want to learn more and be just kind of have this broader knowledge and be a historian of the offenses that we've raised against children in the United States, Laura's book is really good. I've read the whole thing. Another good book is Shattered Bonds by Dorothy Roberts. She talks about AFSA supporters place children's rights to be safe in opposition to parents' rights to have custody of their children. These statements follow a very common habit of contrasting parents' rights and children's rights. This way of framing the issue assumes that parents and children's interests are in opposition to each other, and it assumes that only parents, not children, have an interest in family integrity. The message there being it is also important for children to have integrity. Again, another book I would highly recommend. Dorothy Roberts is a professor at a university in the East. I'm not sure where it is right now. I believe it's Pennsylvania, but I'm not sure, but it's a very good book. And actually, I've read this book in spattered parts, because when I read this book and I read 3 or 4 pages at a time, it sounds like me talking. And so I'm like, okay, this is just me. This is just me. But she gives that message, and it will help you know the right language when you want to talk about these issues. Here's another book called Injustice, Inc. This is a frightening book. I've read this whole book. It's by Daniel Hatcher. He is also a professor. He also wrote The Poverty Industry right before he finished this book. And he said, because the process of maximizing Title IV funds from children can be confusing, many Ohio juvenile courts hired a private revenue contractor called Justice Benefits, Inc. JBI is incentivized by receiving a percentage of the money claimed through children, 22% of the monies recovered from federal funds. All right, now let me explain this to you. Number one, I have read this book from cover to cover. It's a very short book. It's only about 150 pages, very well documented. It was written by an academician who has sourced every fact that he has put in the book. As much as I know about federal funding, this book made me shudder. And it made me shudder because he really gets down to the monetizing of children in foster care, the children going through family courts, through Title IV-D, and the children who are going through our juvenile justice system. It is frightening. So what he is saying here, that this company, Justice Benefits, Inc., as soon as a child comes into the jurisdiction of a court, in other words, the child is just present in the court, whether it's because of a divorce, whether it's because of delinquency or unruly, or a DCS case or a paternity case, as soon as the child is under the jurisdiction of the court, the court and the agency can report that child's name, social security number, and date of birth to an agency like Justice Benefits, Inc., who now creates this entire profile of every possible scenario of where they can get federal tax dollars on this child. And then Justice Benefits, Inc. takes 22%. I mean, they are total mercenaries. And the fact that there is a company that can be profitable by monetizing our children is frightening. Also, he talked about cities and towns using juvenile jails to spur economic development and generate government revenue. Detained children are essentially bought and sold as for-profit juvenile facilities are purchased by large private equity firm, real estate investment trust, and other companies traded on the stock market. Large private entities structure themselves as nonprofits while generating millions in revenue from vulnerable youth. And I know juvenile justice is a bit different from foster care, but this past year in 2022, I ran for juvenile court judge in my community because I was well aware of the monetizing that was going on through juvenile justice. And in my very county, they were starting to publicize that they were putting $156 million into a juvenile justice and jail center in my community, which I would say is a pretty sophisticated community and more of a high-end, higher educated community, because they wanted to detain and house more children. In this juvenile facility, there were to be 43 mental health beds. And let me tell you what that means to children being monetized. It means that those children could be adjudicated as severely emotionally disturbed by a juvenile court judge. And then that juvenile court judge could monetize those children up to $500 a day and detain them in the facility, or $17,000 a month. For 43 beds, just think about the profit that could be incurred. The same thing is happening with foster children who are being monetized not only by the state, but by the private agencies. One last book I want to introduce you to is Martin Guggenheim's What's Wrong with Children's Rights. Martin Guggenheim, bless his heart, he's at least my age. He's probably a little bit older than me. He's been talking the talk for decades now, and he wrote this book really talking about children's rights. What are the children's rights? The government bureaucracies, impersonal political institutions, in the language of the Supreme Court, have been criticized for being inept at many functions because childbearing requires exquisite attention to each child's special needs. We should expect state officials would be particularly bad at raising children. And, one of our commissioners in Tennessee finally admitted the state is a bad parent. All right, finally, we are closing up this session. I just wanted to give you an introduction of some of the future trainings and presentations that we'll be putting together and what some of those topics may look like. So we need to talk about laws, rules, and policies. What is the difference and how do those apply to you? The people and players in the process in court, the process out of court, what you need to do to prepare, how you can help your attorney, what happens in court, your expectations, what changes are in process, what changes do we need. You can be an advocate too. Being an advocate, being a lobbyist, being an organizer, being a researcher, and understanding state legislative lobbying. All right, so thank you all for your patience, and that is the end of my formal presentation. And I don't know if any of you have presented questions in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand. I'm going to let Shakima direct those questions.
All righty. Anyone have the hand raised? Let me see.
I see one.
All right, go ahead. Is it Jaila Allen?
Yes, J-Wow. Actually, that's my granddaughter's name. I'm Lolita. I'm from New Jersey. My granddaughter is Jayla Allen. I adopted her. So my question is, I guess, how can I start educating people with something like this in New Jersey? Because I feel like I'm out here by myself, even though I know there's a large number of children that are being taken by Child Protective Services in the state. But people are so afraid, and I've literally been assaulted at a school while fighting for my disabled child and her rights. And she was placed in a nursing home. And of course, we know how much money they'll get for that. So I've been like advocating, and I started my own website called Operation Taking Our Children Back. And my focus is more on taking that language, developing bills and lobbying to take that language out about what's in the states determining what's in the best interest of the child, and the other two that Connie had noted in one of the slides. Because if there's no product, which is our children, then there's no profit. And I mean, they're coming at me hard, threatening to take, well, they took my child, threatening to take my nursing license, so that I can't work, threatening to put me in jail because I keep exposing the school district, the judges, the healthcare.
Well, yeah. So first of all, I'm going to tell you, thank you so much for fighting through this yourself and not giving up, as well as having that desire to reach out and help others. I mean, those are exactly the kind of people that are so important to me, and I really appreciate it. So I will tell you, interestingly, that Tennessee, who had two horrible audits back to back in 2020 and 2022, decided to use New Jersey as its new example. By the way, somebody told them that New Jersey was perfect, and so they were looking to New Jersey. I knew better because I knew there are a lot of families who are suffering. So thank you. And again, thank you. I think you said you have a website, or is it on a social media?
I have it's a website. It's www.operationtakingourchildrenback.com. And it's not fully developed because I'm doing this all by myself. I'm looking for people who have areas and expertise to support me with it. It's not a nonprofit, because I believe once you become a nonprofit, then they put so many limitations on you that you can't do what you really need to do.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'll be happy to help you with that. The best place to find me is Facebook and Facebook Messenger, the Family Forward Project. We just barely started talking about that. I didn't go into it that much, but I am Connie Reguli, Reguli. I have a Facebook personal profile, which I do a lot of political activity on, as well as, raise a lot of cane against CPS. And then the Family Forward Project is our public group. And that is, and the Family Forward Project, like what you're doing, is just a grassroots organization. We take people to Washington and help train them to speak. I do have a presentation on state legislatures and how to begin working with them. I would like to connect with you, because I would like Family Forward Project to have a legislative packet. I have 4 bills that I have put together for this year. The 2 most important ones are to have family advocates. And I would ask that you really help us with that as well, because I have tried to get all kinds of bills passed. I get all kinds of buckling, but I think the time for advocacy is prime. There are advocates in different types of areas, such as disability, veterans, et cetera. So it's time for us to have family advocates. And if we can train family advocates, and then keep, reaching out to the next family and the next family and the next family. I have said, Lolita, that the change is going to come not from either coast, but from the heart of America and from the heart of the people. And it's going to come tangentially to this system. It is very, very difficult to move this Titanic ship around. We just need to move it 3 degrees at a time. So I encourage you to connect with me. And if you want to try to reach out through Facebook, actually, I will put, I'm going to give you an email.
Can I interrupt? If it's through Facebook Messenger, like when you message someone on Facebook, they wiped out all of my messages today, because I posted in there, no product, no profit. And after I made that post today, everything's wiped out.
Okay, so I'm not sure.
My email,
yeah,
and you can reach out to me.
Okay, yeah, please give me your email.
I'll put it in the chat, because my company's email's on there too, but I'll give you the one that I use.
Okay, and Shakima, if you would just write these contacts down, so you and I can get together.
I am.
And if you signed up for this, Lolita, those emails, we should have those email addresses. I need to double check with Shakima about that, but go ahead and put that in the chat, and she's going to make a few notes, and her and I are going to get together afterwards, but definitely, because I really want to work with you there. Okay.
So the next person up we have is Vanessa, Ms. Vanessa de la Cruz.
Hello, my name is Vanessa de la Cruz. I'm calling from California, Woodland, Yolo County. I started a group called Biological Parent Support Group for Yolo County. I still have an active open case. I had 6 children removed from me, even though I was trying to get help, and I sent 3 away, but it's a long story. But I did my programs, everything. Essentially, I ended up losing my job and becoming homeless because of the case. So I'm homeless. I'm in a hotel right now, but I got my children back because I went as far as to talk to like police, board of supervisors, everybody, even the state's wife. I forgot what her name is. This issue is really big. I'm waiting for my case to close. I have like a booth that I'm setting up in front of the courthouse with all of the resources. And I just want to say, Connie, this is amazing. I want to be an advocate for my county, and I'm thankful that I got my kids back, but you have to really put a real big fight. And it's sad because this workers continuously push you while you're down.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you would also make sure we have your email, because again, I would like to connect with you. I mean, we have a lot of groups, and what I can do to support, or if we can get forums where you can then invite your people. I don't know everybody that's here. I don't know how you found out about this training. I did post it through Family Forward Project. I know Shakima posted it. We shared it as much as we could. So make sure that we have your email, Vanessa. Okay. And Char, can you let Char?
Okay, I'll put it in the chat right now. Thank you.
And thank you so much. Next up, we have Charlene Angelastro.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charlene Angelastro. I am on the Family Forward New Jersey page. I had basically stepped up and stepped out this year. There are a few things that I want to point out where we hear people are bringing their voices. We actually need people to start writing in, redressing, and going into putting things on record that need to be put in there in New Jersey. You can talk all you want out here. You can talk all you want on the phone. You can talk all you want face to face. That is not going to get anywhere. The action is going to be in writing. Now we have November 4th, we are putting in a redress. Just so you know, we are doing a big rally out here at our state capitol, and that is Protect the Children rally. That's a nationwide thing that we're going to do, and we're going in with Family Forward. It's going to be represented there. We are going to do a redress to New Jersey's capital for the children. All right, so I'm letting you know that there are things that are being done here in New Jersey, if you're from New Jersey and other states. The thing is the action part, okay? We can all talk, that's not getting us anywhere. We have to take these actions. We have to stand up, step up, get each, like Connie was already explaining, get to the higher levels, get it on record, get it in writing, and let's start slamming these states all at once. Okay, and hopefully we can have some kind of package from Connie that we all bring in together, so the wording is all the same, all the paperwork is all the same, and we can work on that. You know, that everybody has the same thing going in, right? Connie, is that acceptable?
Yeah, I think that's right. And so, yeah, so let's talk about that, the redress for a minute, because, you know, there are different things to do. I do think in speaking, finding forums to speak, and I know, you know, our last two people who brought up questions, it sounds like they have done that as far as talking to, you know, go out and talk at, I go to legislative session. Oh gosh, okay, I'm gonna have to plug in my computer here just a second. Just notice the battery's going low. But you need to find forums to speak in, because it does go in the record on those forums. But I do beg people to write your story down so we can get it filed. When I go to Washington, D.C., I take stories, I tell stories, we put it in their ear, we put it in their face. I have a whole book of stories. I'm going to step away here in just a second and go find it. And so, you know, yes, and the package, and we'll talk about that, Charlene, as to what we want in there, but something that we want on a state level to say, look, you have got to make these changes. All right, you can go ahead. Let me see if I can find a cord to plug my computer in.
So definitely, to everyone's point, I'm Shakima Glover. I'm the founder of Advocacy Activist. Ms. Lolita, I started off as a support group too, for the same reason that I didn't want to be a nonprofit, because I do not want the government controlling what we're doing. I started hitting doors when I have 19 stitches in my forehead, when a worker even admitted that they was following me, ran me off the road, flipped my car with my kids in it. I mean, and I didn't even, my case was a unique case. It was nothing to do with abuse. They tried to use 5 years prior abuse as a reason for removing my children. I was in a court with a parent, and I was standing up for that parent because the judge was belittling her and negating her in front of her own kids as they cried. And he was just so disrespectful and rude. And I felt the need to step in and do something. And I actually went to him and told him straight up that I was going to file something against him. And his goal was to teach me a lesson. And I've lost everything. And I told my lawyer, you can't do nothing to a dead man. I've lost everything. They've sent court marshals to my homeland where my mom is from, in the Virgin Islands, while I'm sitting in their courts. I started going to the courts. That's why I started doing court watches. I just started going to the courts to figure out, why is this happening to me? What is going on here? And as I sat in the courts, I started meeting more and more parents. And I'm like, wow, this cannot be real. They teach us that the system is there. There's justice. I was like, something has to be done. So I started going to so much different support groups. It was a support group for everything but for the parent. Everybody would tell me, just do what they want you to do. I'm like, well, they want me to say I raped my kids. You want me to do that? Well, they want me to say that I did something that do you want me to do that? Well, they just came on my job with 26 police officers and got me fired. What do you want me to do about that? You want me to smile about that? And then arrest me when I retaliate. Then the retaliation on the system is astonishing. So I started trying to connect myself with groups, even if they were not doing the work around child welfare, because it seemed like everybody was worrying about climate justice, housing,
Right.
health insurance, and everything else. But the one main issue that causes intersectional issues is the family. Why
Yes,
all these
absolutely.
exist.
Well,
So
and I mean, that
I encourage
retaliation.
everyone. I
Yeah.
encourage everyone to not to give up, to just start linking up. And that's why we started these forums, so we all can start connecting. We are working too much in silos. I've in these different, I've even started going to groups myself. It started out as one website and then one Facebook group, expanded to so many Facebook groups. And I know Miss Connie's group was one of the original groups that started off with my group and 3 other groups. That was the only groups at the time talking about this. So it's about us to connect and start building a coalition across the states and have this common conversation at our capitals, not just locally, but on a state level, and start going to the federal and getting connected and having these type of forums in your own state. So Connie's a great resource. She was my motivation. I saw a timeline that she had, and that helped me to begin doing my research. So I thank you all for being here. Definitely. Go ahead, Connie.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the retaliation. Yeah. And Renee, just one second, let's pull Renee in, but the retaliation is huge. Look what they did to me also, I mean, I was walking into courtrooms and, and helping people. I mean, and it wasn't about me. I mean, it wasn't because you took my kids. It's because I was trying to get Wendy's kids and, and Robert's kids and, get babies, April's kids out of foster care. And they made me a felon. It was so serious. Yeah, can we let Renee speak?
Yes, go ahead, Renee.
Yes, I'm talking for my sister in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I see the corruption everywhere. I've started becoming an advocate. I'm on TikTok, LexiGirl52. I have 165,000 likes. And I don't even have children, but I had one. But anyway, let me tell you about the corruption. Of course, they took her 5 disabled children, and now I understand why. But here's where it's rough. You go to the court, and the judge is corrupt after a while. He colludes with the other 3 judges. There's only 3 in Manitowoc. Each one of them corrupt and collude together. So you can't get any motions addressed. She was pro se. She had 3 attorneys. Even the attorneys, they wouldn't address the motions. They had lots of ex partes without the required 10-day meeting afterwards. They would set up things where they tried to set, she's required on this plan, you're required to see what your kids are doing. If she had gone to the school, which she's required to do, they would have arrested her because they supposedly had court orders. They wouldn't allow any of the attorneys' motions addressed. These ex partes, they found her in contempt of court. They gave her 5 felonies in the beginning, one for each child, 5 felonies. 18 months later, she got 3 misdemeanors not causing harm. And do you know, in one disorderly conduct, she spoke in court one time and got a contempt of court because she was actually on a Zoom meeting and was able to type it in. The judge was so upset. And so he gave her a contempt of court. Supposedly.
Mm-hmm. And they've silenced me too. I just got another letter, an ugly letter in the mail where they're mad because I put something on Facebook. I mean, they literally stalk my Facebook, but and we have to resist it. And it's so hard because the bait is the child, right? The bait is children. I mean, it would be different if it was our car or, our furniture or, I mean, even our food, we would, if we'd find a way to eat, right? If you just took food, but when children are at stake, that's what makes this so terrifying, so terrifying. And as I have said, the retaliation against me wasn't because of my child, but you know, so many of my cases, I have almost adopted those families. I mean, if any of you watch any of my stuff, Adam and Ashley are like my adopted family. Wendy and her daughter are like my adopted family because I embrace them so much. But when the children are the bait, it makes it so difficult. But we've got to call on these courts. One of the family forward bills is for court recording. So I have family advocacy and I have court transparency and recording. And I tried to get court recording back in 2008 and they resisted it and they said it would cost too much money. Well, I started carrying around a little recorder like this and I record, and I did it really because one day a judge called me a jerk in court and then forgot that he said that, and he did it in open court in front of a lot of people. And I was only asking for something my client was entitled to for me to ask for. And so I carry this all the time and I have recordings and recordings and recordings, and they don't like it. And they've called me out on it. And when I had a disciplinary hearing, they tried to cut me. I had a videographer there. They kicked out my videographer. I took a recording. They like tried to keep me from having a recording. They said I couldn't share any of my recordings. And we just have to say no. You know, we have a First Amendment right. These are open, you know, they'll say they're closed courts, but you know what? It's your case. It's your case and it's your life and it's your story. And so, you know, therefore you should have a right to speak and share it. And parents have got to, and this has got to be part of our future training. Parents have got to document everything. And if they won't let you have a quarter in the courtroom, you have got to have a piece of paper and you've got to have a notebook and you've got to write down the date. And I always, when I train people, I'm like, write the date in this corner of the page, write what's going on. I mean, so that you are collecting that information. If you have a phone, I love iPhones. I love the notes section of iPhone. You can use your notes, which now you can make oral notes. You can make it as soon as you walk out of the courtroom and get in your car. You can dictate a note to yourself. We have amazing technology available to us. And there are some really, if you have recordings, there's some really good artificial intelligence websites such as rev.com, where I upload my audios and they will transcribe them for like $1 a minute. And so an otter.ai, I think is the other one, but they can transcribe these audios, and I've used them and I've attached them. And court reporters have just I mean, they're not even affordable anymore. So we have to have that alternative. So the transparency, the recording in the courtroom is a must.
So yeah, and another thing, real quick, Renee, and then Charlene has her hand up. And another thing is court watchers. So here we have Facts Court Watch in Delray Beach. I myself personally just do court watches if parents reach out to me here where I am in Florida. So in you all's area, Jalea and Vanessa, that could be something that you might be able to provide a service for. And it doesn't cost much of anything. You could ask for a donation because donations are not taxable. So, you know, you could do that. And that's how I started when I decided to make Advocacy active as an actual nonprofit. And I still do court watches from time to time. If anything, I refer them directly to Facts Court Watch, who does court watches on a regular basis. So that might be something y'all would want to consider, because that's what started the fact that they don't want to do recordings. And a lot of family court cases are not recorded. And what we find, like in Broward County, which is where my case started, I moved out of that county sons because of the retaliation. Even after my kids came home, they still was attacking my kids in the school. I've moved from that county. But in Broward County, the judge loves to turn off the recordings. So what Miss Connie saying, I've done the recordings, the spy recordings with the pens. I've done all sorts of types of recordings for different families. Also, so they can see for themselves. I like the video recording so that they can see themselves. Because when you're in a hot seat, you have to be mindful of being more, like subtle. I know you're like mama bear, you're in that mood, but you have to be mindful of how they are seeing you and to act appropriately when you're in their sight. So definitely looking towards court watches in your areas, family support groups, and even start one for yourself, like what Jalea and Lolita, and Vanessa is doing. Okay, so Charlene, and then we could go to your comment, Renee.
Okay, thank you for saying that. What I also want to point out is that in New Jersey, what I had done with grandparents was that we actually got a movement into the administrative court and put it on Zoom. I actually we did that because we brought it in as a business. Okay, they want to contract as a business. We took it as a business. And that judge didn't know what to do with us. Okay, she was appalled at everything that was brought out. She couldn't believe. Now, it's pretty funny. I went in as a reporter, is what I did as an individual reporting. And then afterwards, I had reported the grandparents what actually had happened and how they felt about it once they went through that Zoom. And now they can actually, like I just saw Connie did it today, good job, brought out the Zoom, okay? Because now she attacked, they can't dispute it, right? She has the evidence right there. That is incredible stuff, okay? This technology, let's start using it to our advantage, right? So also Twitter, okay? Twitter is hot right now on everything against corruption. So all of us, if Connie has Twitter out there, we have to start jumping on that Twitter. Let's get it moving. Let's get the attention out there of Elon Musk and all of those guys. We have a few people that are already out there surfacing and bringing that out. We have to kick these algorithms out here. All of us have to start moving this. Okay,
Yeah.
That's the only way we are going to get this attention. People are not listening after 2 minutes. They're shutting you down. That's it. They're not listening. Okay, your short reels are important. Make your impact within that 2 minutes. People will pay attention. What we're finding, and that's through analyzing all of this throughout the years. I've been analyzing this since 2014. I met Connie 2015, I'm going to say, on an Ohio case that was going on, and I happened to be in it. I'm in New Jersey, right? So how did that happen? It happened through the technology. And let me tell you, I'm still with Ohio, with a lot of people in Ohio, with what's going on because of that, because they captured my heart in the corruption that is there. And that was that Ohio was trafficking children at that time. And they were missing and nobody was looking for them.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, this does happen. And we're still moving on with this to this day. But we have to take advantage of this technology and be the digital voice also. Digital voice, we're 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Put out your reels. Say what you have to say, what's important. Also, we call them the BS calls, right? When people call in, challenge that initial call. Get that initial call in person. There's no such thing as a ghost caller. You have a right to address that witness. That always go back to the beginning. That first call, you have a right to a CAD, right, Connie? So you have a right to a FOIA. You can file for a FOIA of anything that's happening through the courts and get your information back in your own hands. Don't let them keep it. Bring it back to your own hands so you can resubmit it, whether it be your video, your audio, their transcripts, because they'll change that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They'll
So yeah,
change the wording in transcripts when you get them back.
yeah, they will.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, you cannot,
don't let me keep going on that.
you can't, so, you can't get the person who reported the allegations, which is really interesting. I've had many complaints about that. So, yeah. So Renee, I know you had something else to say, and I do want to say thank you for telling me that you are Lexi, because I wondered who that was.
Thank you.
I was like, okay, I'm tagging Lexi, whoever that is, because I know
Yeah.
she's always pushing out, when I put a TikTok up about families, sometimes I throw other stuff on there, but yeah, go ahead, Renee.
What I wanted to say was I have found, because I've never been in the court system at all, but I have found it's a catch-22. It's almost impossible for a parent to get their children back the way the system has been set up. It's like a circle, and with the judge being the master of it, and when they collude with CPS and the corporate counsel and the GAL, that's the one thing I want to say. The second thing is the judge usurped his power of visitation to CPS, and they won't give any visitation. We haven't had one visitation in 4 years, ever. They took the kids 4 years ago, the 19th of this year, not one visitation. 3, we did a deposition. One attorney did a deposition on the caseworker, and she admitted that she had never planned to allow the father reunification. Just about 2 months, never going to allow it. He used to do drugs, he's bipolar, but he's straightened up his life. Second thing, my sister was a guardian of these children, and they talked from day one, because she was supposedly the abuser, not the father. And they talked from day one that they were not, well, they gave her the 5 felonies, but they tried to get her guardianship away. So when they went to court for criminal, he took away her guardianship supposedly this judge was recused, let me tell you. After 18 months, we got him recused. So, but he was her criminal case judge. So he gave her the max. He tried to put her in jail for 30 years. She ended up 5 minutes, and I'm not joking, 5 minutes before she went into court, she said, send me to jail because I'm not taking any of those pleas. She ended up with 3 misdemeanors, not causing harm. He gave her 180 days in jail, which was Huber, and he gave her 3 consecutive 2-year probations. And just a week ago in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, they got a man that was pornographic material of children. I think he got a month probation or something, but she got 180 days and she got 3 consecutive. She's off of that now, but I think she should sue him for because he wanted to get her. But what he did was he took away her guardianship in the criminal case, which I think is illegal as well. And that's all I wanted to say. And I thank you for the opportunity to say that. And I appreciate you, Connie, so much because I was never nothing until they took my 4 nieces and nephews, my great nieces and nephews. And now I'm crazy.
Listen, I hear you. Well, I know, and when I go to some political organizations and I say, all people really want is to raise their children, have a job, be able to go on vacation once in a while and, feel like they can have a safe place to live. I mean, that's all we really want. And here we are, we're paying half of our income to some tax or fee or fine or, before you turn, the criminal thing, they wanted to fine me, make me pay all the court costs of $5,000. I had to pay a court reporter $9,000 to be able to defend myself. And then there was an attorney on top of that. So, they've done everything they can to strip me and plus took my income source away. So it's been a mighty war for me.
Connie, did you get your license back yet?
Well, so not yet, because right now, Renee, all they have is time. They know they're going to lose and they're dragging it out as long as they can. I asked the state attorney general to agree to reverse my charges since Wendy's were reversed. He refused to do that. So it allowed him the opportunity to drag it out. I will say that the district attorney, I don't know if you saw one of my posts, but the district attorney called Wendy's daughter the other day and asked her some questions. Unbelievably, I made a post about Mary Catherine Evans. You need to leave, be alone. You lost, you're done. It's our turn. So we're still getting harassed over that. Anybody else? Are there any other questions?
Okay, so this is wonderful. I'm glad that everyone who came. I know this is being streamed live on Facebook. We do have a community forum that we do quarterly, and it's not recorded or live streamed because that's a personal situation where we dive deeper in with individuals from different states to have conversations, to find commonalities, to create different things that we're doing. Then we also have the family statewide forum where we're trying to find leadership, like individuals like Jayla and Vanessa, who are doing the work on the ground that need to be supported so we all can be together and support. Because I know Connie has put out different things where you can write letters. We've done our own actions here when I was in Broward County, and we flooded the state with these postcards. So there's different things that you can do. And even though you're not hearing from anybody, trust and believe the conversations are happening behind the doors. I've been invited to many tables because I've been to Tallahassee, I've been to Washington, D.C. I'm going to have some sit-down conversations with some local professionals. And I encourage you all to reach out to your legislators. The legislative session is coming up in all our states. I mean, it needs to be legislation. I've sat down with Lauren Book in the state of Florida. She's a big child welfare advocate. So find your child welfare champions in your states and start having conversations. Even if it's just you right now and you don't have other families that's going through this situation, encourage family members to send letters and make phone calls on your behalf, because it affects us all. I've had people tell me, well, that doesn't affect me. And now 5 years later, they're calling me because now they're being affected. So we all at some point are going to be affected because once you or that child ages out of the system, it is a generational thing. And it's just a matter of making a phone call to the police, and the police calls DCF. Once there's a child involved, the states all have contracts with our local police departments to come and have our children removed. So just simply calling the police. We have a doctor here in the state of Florida we're trying to get rid of. She calls the police and DCF. For whenever a child comes in, whether they're sick, broken, anything, she just calls. Medical kidnapping is real, you all. When I first heard the terminology, I did not grasp it until we had American Idol contestant right from the state of Florida who got her kids removed because she was vegan and the child had brittle bone syndrome. So this is real, and this is across demographics. This doesn't know, money knows no color or no bounds. So just any little thing that you can do, we all come together and see what we're doing in our respective states that work and make it happen in our states. So anybody have anything else? Definitely, if you registered for this forum, you will get an email from us with all the information on here. And the video links and also other information that I shared in past forums, because the goal here is to raise awareness. And until we're educated, nothing's going to change. As you see from today's presentation, this has been a historical issue that have not been addressed because women have come a long way in this country. And we still have a long way to go as child bearers and protectors and nurturers of our children. And until we can get our men also on board with us, then I don't think anything's going to change unless we start coming together as individuals, as human beings, and humanizing this situation and making changes on the state, local, and the federal level, because the federal funding trickles down, but no accountability. It goes up or down or anywhere around. So start trying to join your different committees and boards and CPS. They have these groups I think here we call them CPS teams, where they decide if they're going to remove your child. I'm fighting to be able to have a community voice on those boards, because most of these people, some of them don't have their own children, or they don't even raise their own children because they don't have time because they're too busy out taking other people's kids. So they don't even have an idea about parenting and all these things. So there's a lot that we can do, but start with your legislators, start with your family members, sending letters and things to legislators to help. Yes, Melina?
Hi, thank you so much. Hi, good to see you. Yes, good to see everyone. Sorry, my appearance, I'm actually in the hospital, but I was not going to miss this meeting because I'm one of the part of the choir of this. I think this presentation is phenomenal. Connie, later on, I need to know how we can do more of these. I really liked it. Shakima, great work in doing this. So a couple of things that I wanted to address is I almost went blank, is that we need to, one, educate more people, and two, what I've been finding up more north in this Florida region that I've been hearing about, and even from California, is in family/dependency court systems. They are starting to give, it's been going on for a while, but we're really catching on. These courts are giving the kids to the dad quicker than the moms, because they realize that moms will actually fight for their kids, which will also keep them entangled into the dependency. And dads, they can juggle the kids more in and out and in and out. So that's something to be looked at. And a lot of times the dads, and not saying this against dads, because it is the opposite way on some occasions, but they're historically, we're starting, because we do court watches, but we are starting to see a collection of the data that is showing that when dads are getting the custody who have been abusers, then the mom is obviously fighting, but it's clear cut that the children should not have been placed there. So Grayson's law, I wasn't on it, I couldn't hear it the earlier part, But Grayson's Law in the state of Florida has an initiative now that when the parent, or whatever the parent is, can show abuse of the other partner, the partner that's the victim, then that will allow the system, and again, with the dependency court, it's a little bit different because there's two allegations, but let's say one parent's getting the accused and one's not, but it allows them to get a stay. This is more in the family court arena, but as you and I both know, or we all know, when family court comes aboard, because of the money stream, they'll usually try to get dependency attached to it somehow, but they'll all get together and then decide, hey, well, even though we're hearing that the dad is the whatever, the moms will fight. The moms will stay on 6 months to 12 months to 4 years to 5 years. Dads will stay somewhere in the background, but if they are giving custody to the dad, even with the abuse. So we're really trying to get them to utilize and educate people on the Grayson's Law. So that can be a tool for families that need it, to advocate. And also with the recordings, which I also wrote in there. Thank y'all for bringing that up, because in my case, had it been recorded, things would have been done. And the last thing I'll touch on, whether I don't recall if it was touched on or I may not have heard, is never, ever, ever go in alone to anything. Never. Yes, never go by yourself into anything. I don't care if it's a doctor's appointment for your child and you're under, yes. And if you're going to meet your kid, let's say your kid is in the system and they are allowing you to go to doctor's visits or whatever, try to take someone with you, because it will always get twisted, what you've said or what you've heard. Find an advocate, find a peer. We need more people in the peer movement, advocates like Shakima and I, and others that may be on here, like Miss Connie. Do not advise your people, if you hear somebody going through these systems, to take someone with them wherever they go to be a witness. And other
They
than that,
take
thank you.
advantage of you when they know you don't have anyone to go with you. That's when I got assaulted, after I pleaded with someone to go with me to the school and no one would.
Exactly. And in most of these arenas, they'll try to tell you you can't have anybody with you, but you have a right to have someone with you. Oh, this one, because I took it off. Oh, I need to put it back on. I was on the brief, this one. Oh, I'm sorry, they got the nurses here with me. But anyway, I'll step back from the conversation. But again, this was so informative. Even things that I thought I knew, I'm still learning. So thank you, everyone who's attending. God bless each and every one of you.
Definitely. Thank you, Melina. Thank you so much. So Advocacy Activist has my information on the page. Some of you have directly texted me about it. We on the survey that you're going to receive, and you see the link in the chat, you can say how you want to volunteer. I will definitely be working closely with Miss Connie so that a lot of the family forward groups that she already have established can start doing this work in their state and start holding forums. So this is just, right now today, I'm reaching out across the United States, and that's the goal. Because we want to start getting everyone connected and start building different coalitions, building a general statewide coalition, but in your state, building groups that you can actually go to, because every state is different in some way. And every state is at a different level. Like right now, I'm working with Foster Fairness, which is a team of lawyers in the state of Florida, to make sure that all youths coming into foster care has an attorney. Because my son has a disability, he was able to have an attorney to speak up for himself. And he was the oldest one. Luckily, he was the oldest of my children. And that rang true with my case. And that really helped after 4 years of fighting the system to bring my children home. So that's another bill that we're pushing for. So we all are doing different things. Maybe that's something we all can work on. I know Connie has 4 bills that I would love to introduce her into our arena. So we all are doing things that we could do. But if we do it not in silos and together, I think it will send a resounding voice and start at the federal, have some people starting at the local, have some people starting at the state levels across our states. Florida is always the first to push out anything bad. Anybody from Florida, we know it. They say you come on vacation and leave on probation, and we're the last to get anything good. So Florida was the first to privatize child welfare, and in the last 6 years, they're reaching all the way up to Kansas City. So it's time for change before the change takes a hold of our families. We are parents, we are humans first, and we need to humanize this situation and let our politicians know that it could be you, even though it's us right now, and not live in that shame. I can't tell you how much I've met so many people that are living in this shame because they feel like, oh, I'm a scarlet letter A, I'm a bad person because my kids was taken. No, you're not. When people tell me that, I back them down and I let them know, well, you know, smell your drawers before you come to check mine, you know? So let's come together, check out our pages, check out Miss Connie. Me and Miss Connie will be reaching out. Please do the survey and definitely share this. It's stream live on Facebook. We're going to send out the link for those who are not on Facebook. I get it. There's a lot of people that's not on Facebook. I'll send out the recording so you can share with other individuals, because the goal here is to raise awareness. And without knowledge, we cannot have change. So thank you all so much once again for being here. Thank you, Connie, for taking up this pledge to be here also. Despite all the retaliation we both face, we're here and we're not going anywhere. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed day.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank
Alrighty,
you.
so
God bless.
all right, y'all. Thank you so much. So we'll be in touch. Just look out for our next forum, probably in November or so.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.